Can a professional studio be at home? Yes, it can. There are lots of studios, especially ones that I've been to, that are at home, and they are professional studios. You know, I've got a lot of production friends who have really nice studios built at the bottom of their gardens in like outhouse type things. Like they're still purpose built kind of studio spaces, and they're really good, and they're really good studios. They are very professional studios. I feel like the question that was asked to me is more directed at the kind of more bedroom producer and the kind of challenges you'll face having a studio at home for kind of professional purposes. Now, the problem you've got is with a sort of a bedroom studio, it is ultimately in a bedroom. Like there is usually in a bedroom studio, like if this was a bedroom studio, for instance, there'd be a bed over there and a wardrobe over there. You know, these sorts of things don't scream professionalism, but that's only if you have people attending. Now, people don't necessarily want to attend, let's say they're recording a recording session, vocalists coming round. Now, they don't necessarily want to attend a vocal session and walk into someone's house, walk into someone's bedroom, and then record in someone's bedroom for a proper professional level. Whereas if you had kind of an online service, something like that, you know, there's no reason you can't work from a bedroom and still achieve a good result. But ultimately, nobody sees, you know, nobody sees what is kind of in, nobody sees that it isn't, let's say, a professional space. So you aren't lying, but you're not kind of saying that, you know, there's a bed there, and you know, you can take pictures of the studio and stuff and not get the bed in. You know, from a professional perspective, the best thing to have is and this is obviously, some people can't have this, some people can, is have a dedicated room that's, let's say, the spare room, and you can build a really good studio in there. Now, I know a lot of people who use spare rooms, and they've got a room in their house and have a professional studio, especially producers. Because thing with producers, it's very different to mixing engineers. A producer can produce the music in a room that isn't perfect, whereas a mixing engineer or a mastering engineer, you have to be working in a room like this in order to get a great sound, because the obvious issues are with a kind of a room that's not acoustically treated is you can't make the accurate adjustments to the mix based on what you're hearing isn't correct. That's why a room like this is so important from a proper professional aspect. Producers, on the other hand, is perfectly fine, and you can get away, and I would encourage people who are producers to be working from home. It's not a bad thing to work from home. You get your most creativity whilst at home, and you just get it like that, and you can be creative, and you should be like, yes, I want to do this. You'll jump in the studio and you'll get cracking on with it. Mixing and mastering is very different. It's very different. It's not a creative process in the sense that, oh, I want to mix that, or want to do that. You've got to do that, and that's what you do with mixing and mastering. So yeah, I mean, can you build a professional studio inside your own house? Yes, you can. The issues you face is that people attending. If people aren't attending, it still looks professional, because it all comes down to the professional results that you can achieve. If people are attending, you know, I had one person, and I saw, it was a friend on Facebook, and he had people coming in to record at his home studio, and it was in his bedroom, and this was quite a long time ago, but he had this bedroom studio, and he had a cupboard, and inside the cupboard he had acoustic kind of tiles all in the cupboard, all on the door, and basically when people used to come round to record, he used to say to them, kind of put the mic in the cupboard, and people used to climb inside a big like wardrobe cupboard and vocal. And I remember thinking, like, you know, no vocalist is ever turning up at that studio, and especially like imagine a vocalist that's not necessarily confident, and the engineer's sitting there, right, hop inside the cupboard. They would literally look at you and be like, what? Like, I'm not getting inside your cupboard. As well as, you know, putting someone inside a cupboard, it's just going to make things worse in terms of acoustics. You're better off being outside the cupboard, to be honest. So yeah, I mean, that doesn't scream professional. I mean, you could have the best mic in the world, but you put someone in a cupboard, they ain't going to want to go and do their best work in singing inside someone's wardrobe. Yeah. So yeah, you can set up a really good home studio. Like this studio, for instance, this could be built at someone's home. There's no reason a studio like this can't be built at home. The problems you'll face, though, are you can annoy the neighbours. You can also, if you've got a family, you know, your family have got to live in and amongst a studio like this, which kicks out a lot of noise. You've also got the situation of where do you put it. You've got to have a good sized room, and I mean, it's not difficult to build a room like this inside a house, because all you need is 4 walls and a door. Like, even if it's got windows, for instance, you can board up the windows and then put the acoustic panels behind that and in front of the windows, and then build walls in front of that, and you can basically build a box, float the floor, float the ceiling inside, so you've got now a new box within a room that isn't necessarily square. So you can create really good rooms at home. For me personally, I like to have a studio that's not at home. I don't have a home studio because I like to have, when I get home, I like to have home life. I like to be with my family. I like to do all that. If I had this at home, for instance, you wouldn't get me out of it. I would be in here non-stop. It would come 7 in the morning, I'd still be in here. Mainly because there's no windows. You lose track of time. Like, the amount of times I leave here and I'm like, blimey, it's dark. You know, it's like, I always say it's like being in Vegas, because you just, like a casino, you don't get a sense of time while you're here. So yeah, I like to have that separation of home life and kind of and studio life. So yeah, I mean, can you build a studio at home? Yes, 100%. It's far more beneficial as well, because in terms of like rates, now here in London, if you've got a studio that's built into an industrial complex, for instance, the rates at the moment are probably gone up about 3-4 times. I've got lots of friends who have got studios in sort of industrial spaces, and their rates are ridiculous. So much so that they've had to put their prices up. Now, we haven't got that situation because we own our building, but people who don't and are renting and are on rates, they can have their rates increased, and they have no way of kind of, if the building rates increase, you have to pay it, because you've built, imagine if this studio was built into an industrial unit and it was owned by someone else and they put the rates up. It's not like, oh well, I don't want to pay them rates, I'll go move somewhere else. You can't just pick this up and move it somewhere else. So that's the situation. You're kind of tired when it comes to that. So when the rates go up, like let's say, for argument's sake, right now the rates got up 3-4 times, and you were paying, let's say you were paying £2,000 a month. Now they're up to £8,000 a month. Right now, you have to physically put your service rates up in order to pay for this kind of cost of living crisis, and the fact that all the rates and everything are going up. So if you've got to now pay £8,000 for your unit, it means that you cannot keep your kind of service rates as the same. So that does play a big part in it, all of that. So if you're at home, though, you know, you're paying your rent, you're paying your mortgage, you're paying whatever already. That's something totally separate. So your actual studio doesn't have any rates. It doesn't have to pay for anything. So when it comes to things like you know, let's say you're starting a studio business and you're getting it off the ground, first year you don't have to make massive amounts of money, because everything's already paid for it, because you've got to pay your mortgage, you've got to pay your rent, whatever. This is just whatever you can make if you've got a studio at home is all extras kind of thing. So there are massive pros and cons to having a studio at home. Personally, I like to have one outside of my house, but I also would love to have a studio. I'd love to have this at home, but you wouldn't get me out of it, and my wife would probably end up divorcing me because she'd never see me, and yeah, it'd probably all backfire. So I like having the studio here. It's nice to walk away from home and turn up at the studio, and you go to the studio.